meeting Hope is on the Move. My father and my mother were refugee Arameans, in Deuteronomy 26:5. Address of Pope Leo XIV to participants in the Jubilee of the Roma, Sinti, and traveling peoples. This took place in the audience hall on Saturday, October 18, 2025. Dear brothers and sisters of the Roma, Sinti, and traveling peoples, welcome. O del si tu mensa, may the Lord be with you. You have come to Rome from all over Europe, even from outside Europe, as pilgrims of hope in this Jubilee. With your presence, you remind us that, quote, hope is on the move, end quote. And that's a quote, to the Pontifical Council for the Pastoral Care of Migrants and Immigrant Peoples, Fundamental Points for Pastoral Care of Gypsies and Ecclesial Perspective. The title of our meeting, and today we all feel renewed by the gift you bring to the Pope, your strong faith, your unshakable hope in God alone, your solid trust that does not yield to the hardships of a life often lived on the margins of society. May the peace of Christ be in your hearts, brothers and sisters of the Roma, Sinti, and traveling communities. And may peace also be in the hearts of the many pastoral workers who are here today and who tirelessly walk with you. Today's Jubilee celebration comes 60 years after the historic First World Meeting that Pope St. Paul VI had with your communities in Pomezia on September 26, 1965. Almost as a witness to that event, the statue of Our Lady is here today, which the Pope himself crowned as, quote, the Queen of Rome, Sinti, and Travelers, end quote. Over the past 60 years, meetings with my predecessors have become increasingly frequent. Different contexts, a sign of lively dialogue and special pastoral care for you, quote, the beloved portion of God's pilgrim people, end quote. That's from that same document from the Pontifical Council of the Pastoral Care of Migrants and Immigrant Peoples. It says, quote, called The Pastoral Care of Gypsies by the Church, an Essential Task. The previous document was the Covenant with God and the Itinerary People. This one is that, about the Gypsies. Yes, God the Father loves and blesses you, and the Church also loves and blesses you. You can be living witnesses to the centrality of these three things: trusting only in God, not attaching yourself to only worldly goods, and showing exemplary faith in works and words. Living this way is not easy. It's learned by accepting God's blessing and allowing it to work to change our hearts. Quote, by her very nature, the Church is in solidarity with the poor, the excluded, the marginalized, and all those considered the outcasts of society. In our hearts, we encounter the need to heed this plea, one of the liberating action of grace within each of us. So it's not a matter of a mission reserved only to a few. And quote, that's from his apostolic exhortation, De Lexite, Article 111. For almost 1,000 years, you have been pilgrims and nomads in a context that has gradually built models of development that have proved to be unjust and unsustainable in many respects. For this reason, so-called advanced, in quote, societies have consistently rejected you, always placing you on the margins of cities, on the margins of rights, on the margins of education and culture. Yet, it's precisely the model of society that marginalized you and made you itinerant, without peace and without welcome, first in seasonal caravans and then in camps on the outskirts of cities where you sometimes still live without electricity and water, is the one that has created the greatest social injustices globally in the last century, enormous economic inequalities between individuals and peoples, unprecedented financial crises, environmental disasters, wars. But we, in the faith in Jesus Christ, know that, quote, the very stone which the builders rejected has become the head of the corner, end quote, that's Matthew 21:42. So we're increasingly strengthened in the idea that the values that the poor uphold with great dignity and pride are precisely those to which we must all look in order to change course. Your presence on the peripheries of the West is indeed a sign to which we can refer in order to eliminate many structures of sin, for the good and progress of humanity towards a more peaceful and just coexistence in harmony with God, with creation, and with others. Pope Benedict XVI, when he met you in 2011, said, quote, you are a people who in past centuries did not uphold nationalistic ideologies nor aspire to possess land or dominate other peoples, end quote. It's from Pope Benedict XVI's meeting with representatives of gypsies from all over Europe on June 11, 2011. Today, too, free yourselves from every temptation of possession, any unjust attachment to things, to remain itinerant in the capital S spirit, poor in spirit, and therefore blessed. Quote, the ethnic groups that in interaction with nature developed a cultural treasure marked by a strong sense of community readily notice our darker aspects, which we do not recognize in the midst of our alleged progress, end quote. That's from Pope Francis' post-synodal apostolic exhortation, Carita Amosonia, from February 2nd, 2020, Article 36. Therefore, today I urge you, do not be discouraged, being closer to the condition of Christ. Poor and humiliated, you remind humanity of the, quote, paradigm of Christian life, end quote. That's from the Pontifical Council for the Pastoral Care of Migrants and Itinerant Peoples, Fundamental Points for Pastoral Care of Gypsies and Ecclesial Perspective, entitled The Life of Gypsies, Paradigm of Christian Life. I encourage you to believe in the salvific beauty that your culture and your itinerant situation brings with them. In 2019, Pope Francis made a heartfelt appeal to you. Quote, I ask you, please have more heart, more spacious, no resentment, and go forward with dignity, the dignity of the family, dignity of work, the dignity of earning daily bread. This is what helps you go forward, and the dignity of prayer, end quote. That's from Pope Francis' prayer meeting with Roma and Sinti people on May 9th, 2019. May the dignity of work and the dignity of prayer be your strength to break down the walls of mistrust and fear. What I have just said seems to me to highlight a real mission that you have in the church. Pope Benedict XVI had already emphasized that, quote, you too are called to participate actively in the church's evangelizing mission, end quote. That's from Pope Benedict XVI's meeting with representatives of gypsies from all over Europe, June 11, 2011. And even more recently, Pope Francis meeting you in 2019 in Blaj, Romania, encouraged you, quote, as a people, you have a great role to play. Do not be afraid to share and offer the distinctive gifts you possess and that have marked your history. We need those gifts, end quote. That's from Pope Francis' greeting to the Roma community in Blaj, June 2nd, 2019. Today, therefore, I echo the invitation of my predecessors. Be protagonists of the epochal change underway, walking together with other people of goodwill in the places where you live, overcoming mutual distrust, making known the beauty of your culture, sharing your faith, your prayers, and the bread that is the fruit of honest labor. Finally, thanking the Dicastery for promoting the integral human development and the Migrantes Foundation for their great efforts in organizing such a beautiful Jubilee, I invite you pastoral workers with the Roma, Sinti, and traveling peoples to pursue with renewed energy the objectives formulated by the 5th World Congress on the Pastoral Care of Gypsies. And then there's a final document being referenced there from June 7th, 2003. I refer in particular to those relating to education and vocational training, pastoral care for the family and the community, the inculturation of liturgy and catechesis, including the question of language, and ecumenical and interreligious dialogue in the world of the Roma, Sinti, and travelers. Finally, I hope that every diocese will develop adequate pastoral care dedicated to the Roma, Sinti, and traveling communities for true integral human growth. Dear brothers and sisters, may the Jubilee pilgrimage strengthen you in faith and hope, and walking the path of the gospel courageously. May the Virgin Mary protect you, and my blessing accompany you.